Answers.
Oh, you want to know so badly. You think knowing will heal you? Huh? Fill some crater in your soul. Well, here's your answer. Your parents didn't love you.
This is the moment when I realized that Lord Shen might just be the most evil villain I have ever seen in animation. Generally speaking, a villain's character arc should suggest how evil they are. But in a visual medium like cinema, there are visual cues such as character design that makes it easier for the audience to separate the good from the bad. And just based on how they look, there are all kinds of villains. Darth Vader is particularly scary because of all that black costume. The long black cape, a synonymous symbol of evil in cinema, and a rather unsettling mask that prevents you from connecting with his emotions.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
And then there's someone like Thanos, whose otherworldly physique makes him incredibly formidable.
You have my respect, Stark. When I'm done, half of humanity will still be alive.
And some of them have facial scars. Well, most of them do. And a lot of them wear masks. And the general villain, about 90% of the time I would assume, would be a mix of all these features. But we're not here to talk about the typical bad guy, the one that has an aura that makes your skin crawl. No, I'm here to talk about the deceptive ones, the one that looks different, perhaps even funny, but equally evil. But the number of villains who fits the description is quite minimal compared to the multitude of villains across the board. I mean, Dr. Evil from Austin Powers is probably the funniest of the lot, but you can't really take this guy seriously and call him pure evil.
We hold the world ransom for $100 billion.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. When the villain looks funny, they are more of a caricature than pure evil. So naturally, I turned my attention to animation for better luck. And in the world of animation, especially since a lot of feature films have a young target audience, the villains don't particularly look that sinister. A lot of them do look pretty goofy, and although they do proclaim how evil they are,
You've ruined everything. And now it's time to die. Any last words, Gru?
they're not really that evil. But recently, after having watched the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, I realized that I found the villain that fits the description really well. Lord Shen, on paper, has no right to be a villain. He's kinda goofy.
To the left. Perfect. With the weapon by my a little bit more.
But my god, he has to be the most evil and cunning villain that I have ever seen in animation.
Yes, I was there. Yes, I watched as your parents abandoned you. It's a terrible thing. I believe it went something like this.
We all know that DreamWorks don't really hold back when it comes to villains. In fact, it was only recently they came up with this. So it was only standard procedure to have great villains in all three of the Kung Fu Panda movies. But if you ask someone who their favorite villain from this trilogy is, they're most likely gonna pick Lord Shen. And this to me feels weird. Because when you actually look at it, Lord Shen is perhaps the least menacing character out of the three. You have Tai Lung, a looming threat, eventually turning up to be a ferocious snow leopard with an immense screen presence.
I did to make you proud! Tell me how proud you are, Shifu!
And Kai, an almost immortal spirit warrior who takes the shape of a formidable bull.
With your chi, I will finally be able to return to the mortal world. And this time, you won't be there to stop me.
And then you have Lord Shen, a white peacock of all creatures, and they expect people to be scared of him.
Greetings, Panda. We meet at...
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
But honestly, this is why he's the perfect villain. Because the devil lies in the details, and that same devil lies deep underneath the surface of his appearance. You see, the appearance of Lord Shen is the decoy. It's a way to deceive the audience into thinking that he's not particularly a threat compared to someone like Tai Lung. But even in the design of his character, there are things that are hiding in plain sight. Be it leucistic or albino, White peacocks are incredibly rare, with data showing that in the family of birds, this genetic mutation showing up in only 1 in 30,000 birds. And without explaining too much, this shows how rare this peacock is, and in his backstory, you can clearly see how while his parents look like normal peacocks, he's shown to be different, which aligns with this narration.
But their son, Lord Shen, saw darker power in the fireworks. What had brought color and joy could also bring darkness and destruction.
And the fact that he's a goofy peacock adds so much to the deceptive nature of this villain. Peacocks are generally pretty docile and beautiful creatures, but don't let this fool you. They are incredibly territorial and they are deceptively aggressive as well. Lord Shen is quite calm and calculated in his actions, but this pleasant nature is just the allure of this bird. It's almost like they want you to feel like he isn't dangerous, until he pulls out the daggers from underneath his cloak. But his character design is not particularly what makes this villain. It is obviously his actions.
Let me heal you.
And this is when you realize that the character design was a facade. The real monster lies beneath the surface.
Then I will kill him and make you wrong.
In the opening scene, his backstory alludes to the atrocities that he committed.
The young lord set out to change his fate, but what he did next only sealed it.
And I remember watching this movie for the first time many years ago, not realizing the magnitude of his monstrosity. It's only when I watched it again quite recently that I connected the crime to the villain. And if you really if you really think about it, Lord Shen might be the first animated villain who had committed an actual massacre, a genocide of an entire species on a full-length animated feature. And it's quite mad to even think about it, but he would remind you of a certain someone from history. But realistically, there's no way of getting around how evil this peacock really is when you understand the story. And it's the way he switches from being silly to fierce that makes him stand out as a villain. In this scene, he acts the part of a goofy villain.
What's in the box, Shen?
You want to see? It's a gift. Oh, it's your parting gift.
His appearance perfect for the comical value of the scene. But then all of a sudden he does this.
In that it will part you. Part of you here, part of you there, and part of you way over there, staining the wall.
And in a weird way, this peacock resembles someone like the Joker in terms of the calm mannerisms that gets dialed up to extremely psychotic behavior all within a matter of seconds. There's no point where he shows even a speck of empathy towards anyone.
Fire at them! But sir, we'll kill our own! I said fire at them! Fire! No.
And although his image is that of a wacky peacock wearing a robe, his actions are often cold and demented, something that's not common in animation. And I believe the fact that Gary Oldman voiced this peacock enhanced the duality of his character.
Find this panda and bring him to me!
His voice was perfect in depicting the madness behind the facade.
The only reason you're still alive is that I find your stupidity mildly amusing.
Lord Shen's morals are clouded in his desires,
Then I will kill him and make you wrong.
something that gets more and more obvious as the story progresses.
Happiness must be taken. And I will take mine.
And this is where the peacock's pride turns from a metaphor to reality, as his hubris does not allow him to accept defeat. And unlike many other villains, there is no dignity, even in defeat.
The only thing that matters is what you choose to be now.
You're right. Then I choose this!
And it is this ego that eventually leads to his demise. The word evil is indeed very subjective. You could go through a list of villains and find redeemable qualities or some kind of saving grace that would argue against their evil. And this could allow some room to believe that they were not completely evil. Just like someone like Tai Lung, who was not completely evil, but was driven to do wicked things as he felt betrayed by his master.
What I ever did, I did to make you proud. Tell me how proud you are, Shifu.
But the case of Shen is different. Although he looks like a typical villain from a children's movie, the character design pretty much playing into this cliche, his actions are far from normal. This is not your average villain. This is what you call a murderous warlord, disguised perfectly under the elegance of the peacock. And what he does is pure evil, and once he does it, there is no way back from it. As far as I'm concerned, there are no redeemable qualities to this villain. This is true evil, the type that cannot be exonerated under any circumstances. But this is why we love this villain. He might not be the most perfect villain in animation, or the most scary looking one. But despite the fact that he looks funny, he is in fact, without a doubt in my mind, the most evil.